Is my mic on? Oh, there we go. Okay, we are about ready to start. So I'm officially starting the meeting of the Police of Ombuds Commissioners right now, and I am Jenny Rose. I am chairing the commission this year. And first of all, I'd like to do some introductions on who is here tonight up here. And first of all, I'm going to go through our commissioners. To my left, I have Commissioner Ladd Smith. And further down, we have Commissioner Amy McCollum. And then we have Commissioner Philip Wetzel. He goes by Dutch. And further on down, we have our ombuds, which is Bart Logue. And then our deputy ombuds is Luvi May Amana. And to my right, we have our, well, what could we call you? No, I'm just kidding. Our legal counsel, and that is Brennan, but we call him Boone. That's his name, we're going to call him. And then continuing to my right, we have the lady that helps us immensely with everything. She's our administrative specialist, and that's Christina Cody. And so I'd just like to welcome everybody tonight. I'm glad you're here. We have lots to discuss, if you can see by our agenda, and so we will get started. First of all, we're going to take the agenda and the minutes and make them a consent agenda. So if you've looked over them, if you have any corrections, let us know. Other than that, I will accept a motion for our consent agenda, which is, again, the agenda and the minutes from December, let me look at the date. That was December 3rd, 2024.
You need your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Right by your face, but by your mouth.
I move that the agenda and minutes be approved.
Okay,
I second.
so we have a motion, and all in favor to approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Aye.
So thank you for that. Moving on, we always have a public forum where we invite people to come up and speak, share their thoughts, tell us what's going on so we can hear what you're saying. We do have one speaker tonight, Anwar Peace. If you'd come up, thank you.
We're going to go ahead and put 5 minutes on. And you can start now.
Good evening. My name is Anwar Peace, and I am a 24-year police accountability expert.
Can you talk a little bit louder?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anwar Peace, and I am a 24-year police accountability expert. For those years that I've been doing this, I've been advocating to try to make sure that police shootings don't occur. And on December 29th, my upstairs neighbor was killed by Spokane police while I was home. This situation touches my heart deeply because now every time I walk out my front door, I see police bullets that came within 18 inches of killing me. 10 bullets from AR-15s in sniper positions on a hillside killed my upstairs neighbor. The 911 call was a man with a rifle firing shots. But only one 911 call said that there was a rifle or he had been firing shots. In fact, an hour and a half earlier, before the shooting, SPD was at my residence because my downstairs neighbor called about his behavior and wanted to get him help. 2 officers arrived, did not make contact with him, did not make contact with the 911 caller, and then an hour and a half later, without giving any commands to him, because we have a doorbell ring video that shows the 10 bullets. Here, you can hear them. And about 30 seconds before the shots, It's dead silent. So they didn't offer any commands to him. In fact, he was inside his doorway when he was killed. Now, me being me, when this situation took place, officers knew that I was there. They knew my platform, who I am in the community. And the SEER team, which controls officer-involved shootings, actually cleared me out of my apartment so I would not be present to watch their investigation of my upstairs neighbor. While his blood was pooling on my ceiling, I had to leave my unit. I was the only one asked to do that. Not even the person that had bullets fired into their apartment. They weren't cleared out of their unit, but I was. Marinate on the fact that Spokane's most prominent police accountability expert almost died on the 29th because of this Wild West police force. I'm demanding that there's an investigation. I get the investigation is going on the shooting, but I want an investigation on the 30 times that my neighbors called police to get Joshua Musselman help, and they did not do anything. They knew he was mentally ill because he had stolen an ambulance during the summertime. And the judge was worried about his competency, and so the judge sent him to Eastern for 60 days and then let him out. In fact, the day after he died, he was charged with an assault. He was in jail. They released him on his own recognizances. Did not connect him with Frontier Behavioral Health, who was paying the rent on that apartment. None of the times that police have come out to my apartment complex has the behavioral health unit come. None of the times, the multiple times that he's been in jail since he got out from stealing the ambulance, has anybody given him any services. And now we have him dead. And one of the officers was involved in an officer-involved shooting just a few months ago. My neighbors are freaked out every time police come through. They're worried that now that they might be killed. So I'm here tonight on behalf of my neighbors and my complex. I'm here tonight on behalf of Joshua Musselman and his family. And I'm here tonight on behalf of all of the impacted family members in Spokane that are demanding some kind of accountability and some kind of solution to this problem. And I appreciate the special report tonight because this highlights the more dysfunction in this department. I appreciate you all's time. Have a good night.
Thank you. Any comments? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We have a guest speaker here tonight. I'm very excited about this part, I'm going to be honest, because I was able to see actually all of you in work, a couple months ago? I think it was beginning of December. So thank you for coming here tonight. We have Mr. Hector Castro from the Office of Independent Investigation, which if you're watching this, you might say, well, what the heck is that? Because a lot of us don't know what the Office of Independent Investigation is. So I'm just happy that Mr. Castro is here tonight to share what exactly is going on in the state of Washington. So thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. Yeah, my name is Hector Castro. I'm Director of Communications and Community Relations at the Office of Independent Investigations. We have a PowerPoint. Thank you. So again, appreciate the time that you've given us this evening. You can go on to the next slide if you don't mind. Great. So tonight, for one thing, I'd like to be able to introduce some of my colleagues who have joined me here tonight. Also provide you with some background on OII, what our current status is, some of our current investigations that are going on, and then leave time for questions afterwards. So, great. My name is Hector Castro. Again, as I said, I'm the Director of Communications and Community Relations at OII. I've been with the agency since May of 2022, and my division includes media relations and all of our external communications, as well as a family liaison program that we have, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and the community liaison program. To introduce some of my colleagues, do you prefer that they come up to the microphone for the
Sure,
recording?
yes, so
Is
we
that
can-
easier?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
please.
I would like you to meet some of the staff from OII who've been able to make it here tonight. So I'm going to start with our Chief of Staff, Jane Nesbitt.
Hi there, Jane Nesbitt, Chief of Staff. I've been part of this work since the beginning with the project transition team. I feel very grateful for being here and being able to have the opportunity to introduce our team and continue this conversation.
Angie, since you're sitting furthest away, why don't we have you introduce yourself next? Because I'm sure that's so convenient for you.
I can't hear.
Hi, this is tall.
If you could speak really loud, I don't know, I must be getting old, but I can't hear very well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, Angie Smith, Director of Tribal Relations. My tribe's Walla Walla, so part of the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla, and I live in this area out in 9 Mile Falls, so happy to be here.
Before we continue, if we could have the volume of the presenters' mics turned up, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Mark Griffiths. I'm the regional supervisor for the Spokane region, so Region 6. As we are starting to grow this region and get operational, I'll be the supervisor for this area.
Hello, I am Felicia Cross, and I am the Community Liaison Supervisor working over the whole state. I've been with the organization for about 4 months now, and very excited and happy about the work and the mission.
Hi, my name is Gina Cardenas. I'm the Family Liaison for Region 5, which is the Central Washington region. I'm just excited to be able to work with the organizations such as amazing as they are, and so thank you for having us here.
Thank you. I just wanted you to have an opportunity to meet some of our staff. Some of us came from the West Side, and some of my colleagues are here in the Spokane area. So I did want to give a little bit of background on the origins of this agency. I won't spend a long time on the presentation at all. I do want to leave plenty of time for questions. But maybe you could go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So,
He's working on it. Okay, good to go.
sure. Great, thank you. So this timeline provides a snapshot of some key dates in our agency's brief history. And I know I have the microphone, but can you all up there on the dais hear me okay?
Yes.
So again, we were created in 2021 by the state legislature following the establishment of a task force by Governor Jay Inslee that looked into how independent investigations of use of deadly force cases were handled in our state. One of the recommendations was for the creation of a state agency like ours to be independent, focused on these particular cases. One of the things that we have is an 11-member advisory board. This advisory board includes a diverse group of people, all representative of sort of a different segment of the community. And that advisory board was established in November of 2021. One of their key responsibilities was to help select a director for the agency. And so after a lot of interviewing and search, they recommended as our first director, Roger Rogoff, a former King County Superior Court judge, prosecutor. I think at one time he was also a defense attorney. His appointment began, or rather he began serving as director in June of 2022. And when he started, his priorities included development of policies, hiring, training, outreach, identifying infrastructure. One thing to keep in mind is that when you begin to set up a new state agency, you're starting from scratch. We didn't have anything. We didn't have any policies. We didn't have any staff. We didn't have a building, an office space of our own. Really none of those things that you would find in an established agency. And so a lot of the work that we've done the past couple of years is to create all of that. And it takes an extraordinary amount of work to pull together a brand new state agency. Next on the timeline, we have November 22. And the importance of that key date is that that's when we began receiving notifications of use of deadly force by law enforcement from law enforcement agencies around the state. By statute, law enforcement agencies are required to notify our agency when one of their officers is involved in a use of deadly force incident. So we established a hotline. It's staffed 24/7, and we began taking those calls. We've had good cooperation from agencies across the state in notifying us. Of course, at the time, we had no investigators, and we didn't have the staff to actually respond to these incidents, but we began taking the calls and logging those. In July of 2023, we opened what we call our prior investigations program. Our statute gives us authority to reopen an investigation into a previously investigated use of deadly force incident if new evidence has been provided or asserted that was not considered in the original investigation. So we established this program, and I can talk a little bit more about that later as well. But again, the significant thing is that when we started that was July of 2023. Sorry, I had to refer to my notes on that one. I'm still in 2024 mine. I'm getting used to still being in 2025. And then the most recent date that we have of note there is December 1st, 2024. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about our operations, but the significance of that is when we began responding to active incidents. We don't have the staffing to do this statewide, so we started in what we refer to as Region 1, which is a 12-county area that encompasses Southwest Washington and up the Olympic Peninsula. And so we have begun responding to cases in that area now. And then currently, we are deep into conversations and planning for where we open next. Obviously, our intent is to be able to serve all of Washington State, and that's what we're attempting to do. So for this next slide, which displays our mission, vision, and values, I thought I would have our Chief of Staff speak for a couple of minutes about the development of that and why that's important for our agency. Okay. Thank you.
As Hector mentioned earlier, we're a startup agency. Things that some places already have established is what we had to build. And so at the time, I believe, had 15 staff. Now, spoiler alert, we're at 58. But we created a way to get everybody's input on what resonates with them on values. And our mission is clearly stated in the statute. So if it seems familiar, that's why. And for our vision, we hope that we build trust for both sides. And that is a vision that we're hoping to succeed in. Did I miss anything, Hector?
I think so.
So I'm going to hand it back.
Thank you for giving me a breather from the presentation. I appreciate that. So the next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, I was referring to our Region 1 and so forth. One of the things that we did early on was develop or identify 6 regions of operations in the state. And we defined these by basing them on the number of use of deadly force incidents that happen in a given area, to sort of have an equal number of those types of incidents. But as you can see, geographically, there's quite a variation. Region 1 that I was mentioning earlier is the yellow area on the left side of the map. Region 6, which includes Spokane, is the blue area, obviously, over towards the east. So we have this displayed on our website, too, to help people sort of better visualize the areas that we'll be working. And the next slide. So for our operations, Director Rogoff made a decision early on as a way to sort of make sure that we could provide some consistency in the incidents that we respond to. So to start, we're going to be investigating only cases that result in a fatality. This allows us to, again, provide some consistency and also manage the workload within our resources. This is also something that we include with the prior investigation program that I mentioned earlier. Those cases, when the ones that we review, the ones that we could potentially reopen an investigation on, those all involve a case that resulted in a fatality. Another decision that was made early on was to refrain from making any charging recommendations. We'll conduct our investigations, provide a final report, and provide that to the appropriate prosecuting attorney's office. And then it still remains, obviously, their purview to decide whether or not to file charges in a particular case. And then on the next slide, we just have a few statistics about the agency. Our current staff is around 58. As I mentioned earlier, we have 11 members on our advisory board. I should mention that one of our board positions is currently vacant. We've been trying to recruit a defense attorney position, which is one of the ones by statute that we have to have representative on the board. The last two people to hold that position were both from Spokane. We would like to be able to keep Spokane's community voice there, so we're trying to recruit a defense attorney in the region. If you know of anyone, please let us know. We have the information on our website, oii.wa.gov. And then some of the other positions are reflected on here. As I mentioned in the map, we have 6 regions. The Family Liaison Program is sort of a point of contact position for impacted families. We would like to have a family liaison for each of our 6 regions. And in terms of our tribal relations, we have a director of tribal relations and a tribal liaison. So we have 2 positions there. Our community liaisons, we currently have 1. We do hope to fill a community liaison position for Eastern Washington as well. Okay, so for this next slide, I wanted just to say a few words about our investigators. Our investigation team sort of has tiered positions, and the first one are the regional supervisors. Mark Griffith, who introduced himself earlier, is one of our regional supervisors. These are all our most experienced investigators. They're responsible for leading the team of other investigators when there's an incident that we're investigating. Many of them, well, all of them actually are former law enforcement with experience in death investigations, and I believe almost all of them have investigations with use of deadly force incidents. The next tier are the senior investigators. Those are also among our most experienced investigators. They may not have had direct experience with use of deadly force incidents, but they've all had experience with death investigations, and again, they are, again, the more experienced members that we have. And then the investigators tier are staff with some experience in investigations. A number of them are undergoing field training to become more proficient in conducting these types of investigations. Some of them do not have law enforcement experience, so it's a bit more of a mixed population for those investigators. And then we have an evidence technician. This person is a civilian who manages our evidence storage facility. Okay, and as I mentioned, my division includes the Family Liaison Program. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the independent investigation teams, like SIR, that have a detective assigned as the Family Liaison, which is a point of contact for an impacted family. That is one of the functions of our Family Liaison also. But in addition to that, they also play a role in helping that family navigate through the process. For a lot of them, it is their first interaction with the legal system and the criminal legal system. Having to interact with coroners and medical examiners' offices will be unfamiliar to a lot of them. Our family liaisons can help them navigate them. In fact, one of the things that they did before we began in Region 1, the supervisor for our family liaison program and her staff made sure to meet with the offices of every medical examiner and coroner in each of those 12 counties so that they could establish that communication ahead of time. And that's already proven helpful in the 2 incidents that we're currently investigating there. And where they can also connect them to resources that may be available to them in a particular community. Unlike crime victims, they aren't able to access a lot of support systems, but they may have some of the same struggles if a family member has been lost in an encounter like this. And a family liaison can assist them by connecting them with services that might be available to them regardless. And before I wrap up, since one of our family liaison members is here, I'm just going to ask Gina, is there anything that I should have mentioned that I forgot? Okay. All right, so we can go on to the next slide. Oh, the Tribal Relations Division. Well, fortunately, the Director of Tribal Relations is here tonight, so I'm going to have her speak to this slide. Thank you, Angie.
Sure. Give you another break.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah. I apologize. I am about to have a baby any second, so I'm so out of breath just from sitting there. But goodness, I've been with OII for about 1.5 years now, I think. Prior to that was a mental health therapist. So I came into this position, with a trauma-informed mindset, really focused on relationship building, because that's what we got to do with tribes. We have 29 federally recognized tribes, and there's going to be a variety of reasons that our agency is going to have to work with them. With that, there's limited situations where we may have some concurrent jurisdiction, a really challenging area of law. There may be a witness on tribal lands that we need to talk to. There may be a tribal death. We know this. We already know from even just our prior investigations submitted, for requests that it impacts tribes disproportionately, unfortunately. So we really wanted to build a program that was really intentional in our work with tribes. It's a lot of tribes all spread out with different cultures and different resources, different traditions, and so we wanted to keep that in mind. So we have been meeting with all tribes in the state. We've met with a large majority of them already, and we're, like I said, serving as a liaison between OII investigations and tribes. So both tribal government, tribal leaders, and tribal police, and the community members. So we want to be able to provide culturally appropriate services wherever we can. So that last slide on family liaison services, we want to be able to swoop in and do that at the request. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Back to you.
Thanks, Angie. I think one of the things that you'll notice is that with all of the programs and with the agency as a whole, we do conduct a lot of outreach, and we are trying to establish a lot of relationships. One of that is because we are brand new. People don't know who we are, and we certainly don't want to make sure that, we want to make sure there are no surprises when we do show up at a scene to conduct investigations and so forth, and that could involve so many different organizations and communities. So we can move on to the next slide. This is a community liaison, which is a program to provide someone that is intended to be accessible and available to the community. But since Felicia is here tonight, I'm going to take another breather and have Felicia speak to this slide.
Thank you. So, community liaison, this is just like a cookie cutter for me. I grew up in Seattle, born, raised, and live in the same house I've lived in all of my life. I've never moved away. And so my family is grounded, rooted community. It's just what I know. And so I worked with the Community Police Commission before coming on here to OII with Seattle, the Community Police Commission for Seattle, and which was a lot of work with the community and trying to build the relationships with community. And so I know that community. I know that. So this coming to OII is just a huge challenge and an exciting, becoming a very exciting experience to be able to broaden out throughout the state. Right now it is just me, but we are purposely looking to hire, especially someone on the eastern side. There's a hiring freeze right now, but that's, logistics. But the purpose of the community liaison, as we are developing the plan and to execute throughout the state, is to be able, like Hector said, to be visible and approachable. Right now, I'm really working hard to make connections within communities. So what I ask of you and anyone that you come in contact with is if there are community events, or just like you've invited us to come here tonight, if there are any other organizations or groups that you would like for us to come and give a presentation to so that they could know more about OII, then we are happy to take those. If there are any contacts, anybody you want us to keep on our list, we have a website that you can go to get all information, even the press release from when there is an incident. But and also there will be a community tab to the website to just know what we're doing and how we're engaging. One of the things that we have started to do before Region 1 opened, we had a Zoom meeting and tried to reach out to as many people as we could in Region 1 to let them know who we are and what it would mean if and when something happened in their area, that we would come in, so that they didn't come in, that our agency didn't just walk in and then everybody was like, well, who are you guys, So we wanted this, so we were going to do that for every region before we open. We're going to have a community meeting, and then also we will be having quarterly meetings just for everybody, just to hear your input, because this agency is really driven off of communities' word input. I like to say all the time, working with community, if we all agreed, then we wouldn't need these jobs and positions and things like that. So everybody's voice is valuable, and there's something to learn and to get from everyone. So please stay tuned, and if you have any events going on in Spokane that we could come and table, we can come and do presentations, and we're in the process of signing up with Nextdoor, so that's another means to try to reach as many as we can throughout the state. Welcome any of your thoughts, opinions, or concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. We can go to the next slide. So again, as I mentioned earlier, our current status is we are actively responding to cases, incidents in Region 1. We put that announcement out, I want to say, it was July of last year, and spent those months doing a lot of groundwork to make sure that the law enforcement agencies and the community groups were aware that we'd be operating there beginning in December 1st. Those are the 12 counties that encompass Region 1. And let's see if there's anything else I wanted to make sure. I think, one thing I guess I do want to say about this is, obviously, the intent initially was to be able to operate statewide, but at some point it became clear that if we were going to wait until we were fully staffed to operate statewide, it was going to take us a long time. And so the director made the decision that we would be starting in phases. Region 1, that part of the state, one of the reasons that we decided to start there is because we had staffing in the area. Well, like a lot of state agencies, a lot of our employees work remotely. And so it isn't so much that we need structures everywhere, but people. And when we kind of looked at the spread of staff that we had, the resources we had, it made the most sense to be able to start there, because that's where we had everyone. We still remain committed, obviously, to being able to operate statewide, and we continue to recruit and hire even now. As evidenced by some of the staff here, we have folks in the Spokane area too. But that is sort of some of the reasoning behind the decision of starting there, also to be able to get started somewhere. And you can go to the next slide. So as I said, December 1st is when we became available to respond. By December 4th, we'd had our first incident in Vancouver, Washington. And just recently, a second incident, our second case in Region 1 in Centralia on Sunday, January 12th. Both of those cases are under investigation. By statute, we are required to complete our investigations within 120 days. If it's going to take us longer, we need to explain why to our advisory board. And then I spoke about the prior investigations program. So the prior investigations program was set up to have a pretty low bar for people to submit things to. But as I mentioned, one of the criteria is that there has to be an assertion of new evidence, and also that it has to have resulted in a fatality. So we've had some submissions that just don't meet that criteria. Some of them have been about cases that happen out of state, and so we have no jurisdiction. But of the ones that have met the criteria, 7 are currently under formal review. We haven't reopened any investigation on any of those. They're still under review. When the review is completed, that review team will make a recommendation to the director, who will ultimately decide whether a new investigation is warranted. If we do something like that, we'll make sure to make a public notice, probably issue a news release, because that would obviously have a lot of significance for us to do something like that. So that's kind of where we are with that right now. And then on the next slide, just some ways to stay in touch with us. As Felicia mentioned, that's our website, oi.wa.gov. That email, contact us at oi.wa.gov, is a general email that gets monitored by several people on staff. And then we're on Facebook, starting. Our LinkedIn account is probably a little more active, and we're looking at other social media, as Felicia had mentioned. And that is the gist of the presentation. I wanted to make sure that there was time for questions. So happy to try and answer questions, and I have help here if I can't.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm Philip Wetzel. Thank you for coming. So,
Dutch, come up to your microphone a little bit so they can hear your beautiful voice.
For the TV audience.
so you have told us that you will respond to a use of force that's fatal. What do you do when you respond? I mean, my question is do you go do your own photographs and measurements and you collect all the communications?
Yeah,
Do you do your own forensics?
We do have, our staff are trained on forensics. In the last two incidents, we did work with the State Patrol crime scene response team that did some of the evidence collection, but yeah, we're a full investigative team. I think each of the two incidents involved right around 15 of our investigators in the response. People are able to respond from different parts of the state as they kind of approach, but in both of the two recent incidents, we were able to respond relatively quickly because, again, it has to do with where our staff live. And in Vancouver, we had investigators who live in that area and were on the scene within the hour. It was similar for the incident in Centralia. We had people who live nearby. And yeah, it's a full investigative team that conducts the investigation. One of the questions that we would get a lot from law enforcement agencies when we'd go out and do outreach was how would that work? How would the interaction between our agency and the IIT, for example, or the involved agency work? We spent a lot of time developing protocols on exactly how that would work, and we posted it on our website. So they are available for review by anyone who's interested to kind of like dig into the details of how the exchange works. But from evidence collection, canvassing the neighborhoods, speaking to witnesses, processing the involved officers, yeah, our team does all of that.
Are you able to compel statements and testimony?
No, we can't compel anyone to speak. I don't think that's something that, I mean, everyone has a right to the Fifth Amendment privileges. And so, I think in a lot of cases, statements are provided and so forth. I couldn't give details about what's going on with the current investigations that we have underway. But processing the officers, yeah, we've been able to do that, collect the uniforms and things like that.
Do you anticipate that you'll be bringing cases to special investigative judges or grand juries to compel testimony?
That is really outside of my area. I'm not one of the legal minds on our team. I know that our intent is to conduct the complete investigation and then present those investigative findings, the entire investigative file and report to the prosecutor to make the decision. Specific to trying to get an involved officer to provide a statement, I really wouldn't feel comfortable sort of trying to weigh in on that aspect of it. I think there are a lot of legalities in that would really require one of either our senior legal and policy advisor or our director to weigh in on.
In addition to referrals to local prosecutors, are you considering referrals to the Attorney General's criminal department?
Not currently. The way our process is set up is to go to the local prosecutor's office.
With respect to the tribal cases, are you considering referrals to the federal authorities, since many of the tribal offenses are going to be on reservations?
Well, in most of those cases, we wouldn't have authority. We're a state agency. We wouldn't have any authority over sovereign nations. There are situations, and as Angie was mentioning, there are complexities, and there might be certain unique circumstances where we might have a certain role. But again, sort of generally, we don't have jurisdiction there.
That's all I have.
If you have other questions, or if on some of those that I wasn't able to answer, I'm sure we have notes, and I'd be happy to get you a more complete answer from, some of the folks on my team at the agency who could really provide you a more complete answer than I was able to tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Logue?
I have many, but I want them to come back, so I'll keep them.
Thank you, Bart. I appreciate
somewhat
that.
easier. But I attended your online forum a month or two ago, and I asked this question, so I know there's an answer out there, but I think it'd be interesting for everybody to hear it. What is your policy on releasing information as it becomes available, such as early release of body-worn camera footage and that sort of thing?
Well, regarding body-worn camera footage, that won't be released until the investigation's been complete. But as I said, our investigations by statute should be completed within 120 days. So other information, similarly, until the investigation is complete, like any investigative agency, our investigators are going to want to be protective of that to protect the investigation. That being said, the protocols that we've written for our family liaison program does provide for some of the video footage to be shown to an impacted family member if that's something that they request. And then we would work with our family liaison would work with our family and our investigative team to try and make sure that happened.
Okay, thank you. And then a follow-on, and just because I know Mark and I see him here, how does it work? What makes this different than a SEER team investigation? So for instance, if Mark is the head of Region 6 and there's an officer involved shooting in Region 6 that you're going to investigate, but Mark was a former SPD officer and SPD was involved, how does that work? How do you separate that?
Well, we have a pretty robust, conflict policy and process. I mean, everyone at the agency has to submit conflict forms and sort of attest to whether or not they know any of the people that have interacted with the investigative team. I've had to do that, my staff had to do that, and I just do the media relations. So it's pretty important for us to be able to maintain that sort of a bias-free environment for the investigators. Again, that's probably something I would need to follow up with you specifically, but we have a policy that sort of details exactly what that involves and sort of the level of detail you need to get to when you're reviewing those materials.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Mark, is there anything you would want to add that I didn't mention? No. Okay.
I guess my follow-up, I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask it to that question is, if we have a shooting here in Spokane, can Mark right now immediately go out to investigate?
No, we're not operating yet here in Region 6. Okay. So he wouldn't be able to just yet. And part of it is he doesn't have a full team yet. Okay. And so we still need to do some recruitment, hiring, and training to be able to field a team that would be able to respond to incidents here.
I'm wondering about funding for the future. We have a legislative session coming up. What is your hunch, or is it already guaranteed that we're going to have funding for you for this OII for the foreseeable future?
Well, we certainly have funding, ongoing funding. I think that what happens is, there's always additional sort of expansion and other requests that we might make to get additional funding. I don't know that I'm the best person to answer a budget question. Chief? Would you mind?
I don't think my answer will be. So thank you for asking that question. I think that right now with everything being up in the air, we're going to be flexible and be able to continue our operations, but at the same time contribute to the deficit. And going back to your question in regards to how is this different, currently independent investigation teams, so IITs, respond. Our staff are not connected in any way. So as Hector mentioned about the conflict of interest and how important that is, it's also that these people that we've hired are not going to be doing that continual day-to-day operations as what happens now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Then I have just one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
Because Area 6 is not staffed and ready to roll. Is it my understanding, though, that you can go to previous incidences and with new evidence, you're able to take on something that happened in Area 6?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. But do you have a date or prospective timeline of when do you think Area 6 would be up and functional? 2 years, 3 years?
Right.
Or hard to say?
I appreciate the question, and of course, I would expect this question. Everyone wants to know when we'll be operational. I can't give you a specific timeline. We're literally having those discussions now, and it does have to do with resources and, as our Chief of Staff, Jane Nesbitt, mentioned, creativity. How can we move resources and people and staff around to be able to respond to an incident effectively and provide that sort of competent investigation that is expected. I can't give you an answer right now. I will say that when we do make an announcement, it will be well in advance of when we are operational, so there's plenty of time for those agencies and organizations in that particular community to be fully aware of that we're coming and what to expect when we begin working there.
Thank you.
So I guess my question is the independence of the agency, if it's former law enforcement. I understand you do special hiring questions, but are people, like, for example, in Vancouver, are Vancouver-related people allowed to be on that?
No, in
case?
fact, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, they would be conflicted out.
Okay.
And I appreciate the question in terms of, like, how do you remain unbiased when so many of your investigators are former law enforcement themselves? A couple of things I would say. To be able to do these investigations, you need to know what you're doing, especially as we start up. It's going to take time to be able to train someone who has never had that experience before to become competent in conducting one of these complex, critical investigations. And so to start, the industry where you look is law enforcement. They conduct these investigations. I have sat in on a number of the interviews with the investigators that we've hired, and many of them come to our agency. They're not here just for a job. They believe in the importance of providing an independent investigation. They believe in the importance of remaining unbiased when they conduct an investigation. I've never worked at an agency where so many people working there have such a sense of purpose and mission. So the folks that we are drawing, I mean, it's not everyone's going to want to work at an Office of Independent Investigations and dive into these types of particular situations. They're difficult situations for the communities, for the law enforcement agencies, for the families. And so being able to do that and step into that environment, you have to have a sense of purpose. And as I said, from the folks that I've talked to who did end up working here, a lot of times it's a real commitment to just that philosophy of doing this work in an unbiased fashion.
Okay, great. And thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. And then can we get your PowerPoint?
Sure.
That'd be great. You had some email addresses and stuff in there that would be nice to have. And I think I had one more thing. Oh, how do we plug Region 6?
Well, you've drawn us out
Did
here,
I just
so
do
that's,
it, or
yes,
do I
that's
need to
one way to do
continue?
it.
Like, how do we put in our hat for Region 6 to be considered next?
We know there's a lot of interest in having the agency operate here. I really hope that within the next few weeks we'll be able to make an announcement as to where, but we're just not there yet. And I would be getting ahead of my bosses and the agency, and even the decision-making to sort of make any sort of commitment like that. But I appreciate the sentiment.
Well, and it sounds like reasonable that you would go nearby for your first one, but maybe you could go as far away as you could go to just practice your travel systems a lot better.
I would point out that some of our staff members are from Spokane, so it's not like we're not hearing that internally
See?
also.
You're already on my side. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Logue.
Yeah, just curious, any lessons learned so far as you've started your first two? Because that's always a big thing.
Well, I will say that once the investigation is complete, and we're going to do quite a bit of debriefing and sort of seeing what types of things can be improved. In terms of like lessons learned, I mean, simple things like I should have had a go bag ready to go because the first one came at 12:30 in the middle of the night, and I had to scramble around to grab my notebook and everything I was going to need to deal with the reporters that were going to be there. So just from a personal level, a little bit better preparation for which I have to admit that the second one I wasn't any better prepared. I still had to go scramble around and grab things out, but I will learn eventually. But no, I think, you know, while the investigation is still going on, it wouldn't be fair to talk publicly about some of the lessons we're drawing, but, you know, we are adapting, we are learning from the first experience, and we do plan to, you know, talk a little bit more publicly about kind of that assessment.
Okay, no, that's really good, and I know it's hard, so thanks for doing that. But just one more plug, back on the information piece. We had a community member, Anwar, stood up and he talked about an officer-involved shooting that he had on his neighbor's apartment, December 29th. And he has more information about it than I'll know for the next year. And I know that right now, we kind of respond to that with that 120-day window, but we are used to not learning about things. And really, I'm very, very interested in making sure that we have a robust rollout of information in regards to these investigations, because the cone of silence in Washington, because of this separation of investigative agencies over who's involved in the shootings, has just been less than stellar. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, one thing I would say is the investigative team does like to protect the investigation during the process. When it comes to transparency, we want to make sure that that report is publicly available and that there aren't a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to view that. In addition, I think the other thing we can bring is consistency. So the way we operate in one region is how we'll operate in all regions. And so every county can, the communities in every county can expect the same service and conduct in these investigations. And I think, you know, right now in Washington, I mean, with the IITs and different jurisdictions, I mean, there is some variation in terms of how they operate. I mean, even in terms of how they share their information. There's consistency in terms of like the weekly notifications and so forth, but you look at, you know, some have really robust websites, some not so much. And just sort of slight variations like that in terms of how the community can find the information out. At least one thing we can do is make sure that there's more consistency in that respect, because we're a state agency, and so we'll operate the same way everywhere.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Well, I think I can speak on behalf of everybody to thank you, Mr. Castro, and your team for coming here tonight. Very informative, and I know we'll continue to ask questions, but thank you for taking the time out of your schedule, all of you, to come and visit with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are moving on to our December monthly report, either with Mr. Logo or Ms. Amana.
Yeah, I'll give you the stats, and then Louis May will run through the report, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the extra work that we've been done. I'm getting a bit of an echo, so I'm just trying to hit the right spot on this mic.
Okay.
So 141 contacts for our office in December, which brought our total to 3,091 for the year. If you compare it to the previous year, we had 1,820, so a significant uptick in contacts with our office this year. OPO interviews went from 93 to 143. We had 12 of them in December. And December was a bit of a weird month, right, with the holidays dead center for the last couple of weeks. And we also had Louis May out enjoying some holiday vacation. We generated 3 complaints and also 4 referrals. We certified 6 cases, and we had 7 IA interviews. Two of those interviews, interestingly enough, I was coming back from Burien from a Criminal Justice Training Commission team meeting, and we were able to time it so that I could stop in a rest area and call in and be fully present for those interviews. So there's a lot of coordination that happens along the way, but we're able to get it done. There was a Deadly Force Review Board, which we attended, and then 45 meetings with SPD, and a lot of those had to do with the review board discussions and stuff, and we'll talk about that right after we go over the report, which is far more interesting than these numbers. 6 oversight meetings, 22 community meetings, and then 5 training events. One thing we were training on, we were expecting to go live with something called Axon Standards, which is a new, it's a case review, case management system. I don't know that we're going to actually go to it. The latest I heard was that we might stick with what we have with Blue Team and IA Pro. There's some back-end issues on how Axon Standards is set up, and it's not turning out to be as user-friendly as we had hoped. So more to follow on that, but that was a learning curve. We had a big training on that in December. We had multiple media inquiries into our meeting last month, and there was some press releases involved with that. We're working with Councilmember Paul Dillon on the SMC for the percentage point of our budget. It seems to have stalled. There's been no access on that. So if I could get the commission to emphasize that that's something that we're still interested in moving forward on. I've inquired the last 2 months, and we've received no movement on that. We attended a meeting for the City Hall design team in December, and we are years out from having an answer. So expect nothing on that anytime soon. There may be at least a permanent solution. There might be an interim solution coming up, but there's nothing that I can brief you on that. We worked and figured out OPOC request for case information. We had a couple of commissioners come and ask for information to go and review. That was something that was specifically put into the Guild contract, I think 2 contracts ago. And we figured out how to watermark it and get it out. So I think that's been successful. We've tried it a couple of times, and I think it's been successful. Probably the biggest hurdle was trying to get some home access to evidence.com so that they could watch some appropriate video, but we eventually got that figured out as well. A lot of meetings with IT on that. I was able to attend a weekend event with Commissioner Jasmine and Natasha Hill. That was excellent. Louie May and Commissioner McCollum attended the Use of Force Summit in Connecticut. I went to Burien for twofold. I attended a commission meeting, but then I also went and I met with the Use of Force Program Manager. His name's Richard Peterson, in regards to some of the information that was briefed to me that was brought out by the review board. So we gained clarification on that. I've invited him to Spokane. He'll be here on Monday to meet with the chief, our office, and several members of the SPD Defensive Tactics team. We also met with Maggie Yates. We're working on a potential amendment for the Guild contract regarding the hiring of the deputy ombuds. We participated in mock scenes for the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. We try to do that every time they get towards graduation. I'd encourage commissioners, if you have time and you just feel like being arrested a couple dozen times in a day, you will get a really good idea on how officers are trying to respond to incidents if you go out and attend mock scenes and participate in that. It's a volunteer thing, but I'm sure I could get you in if you wanted to. I attended a Belia graduation, also Corrections Academy graduation, and then also I was able to have a couple of specific contacts with Anwar Peace because of some of his Facebook posts. Interestingly enough, we're friends on Facebook, and I'm able to watch what he posts, and because of the closest to the officer-involved shooting, we had access to more information than normally we would have. And he actually posted a video that I called him up and asked his permission for because he had like friends only. You couldn't share it with anybody. But he was making some specific requests for Chief Hall inside of that video, so I wanted to make sure that we got the permissions changed so that Chief Hall would actually have a chance to watch that video, so we paid attention to that as well. And then just a follow-up, I'm still trying to figure out this new budget for our office this year. There's a lot of yellow lines. I don't understand it. None of it adds up in any of the columns, but we're working on it. But it came to my attention that I got an email a few days ago that you have a position that's vacant and ready for hire at any time. I don't know how this place works. I don't know how this place works. I've been here 9 years, and the way we've gone through our position requests and expansions before, there's white papers, there's approval processes, and this and that. Somebody is doing a lot of work for us behind the scenes, and I'm not involved in it at all. So I think it's good news. It's the right category. I'm still not sure exactly how it got there. But it also makes me wonder that we should probably be involved in those sort of things in some form or fashion. If you're just thinking about the independent aspect of the thing. We should have an idea of the decisions that are being made for our office ahead of time. Now, we did talk about these things and a desire if there was this, if that percentage sales tax increase was to pass, what we might want to do with that. But that's as far as it ever went, and that was briefed months and months ago. So for someone to take that and turn it into an actual position it's sitting on our books right now, there's more to follow on that. I expect a further brief on that in February, but that's where we're at. I don't know how it happened. So subject to your questions on that, we'll get into our report.
Do we have any questions on the monthly report? Okay.
Well, what is the vacancy? What is the position that's vacant?
It is a
Crime
analyst.
Okay.
Seems like it might be right.
Okay.
More to follow.
Okay.
Okay. Are we doing the closing report? Okay. And you're doing it? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and everyone who's here. So I will give a brief summary of the incident, and then I will hit each of the substantive areas that we made recommendations, and we have 10, so I will try to keep it brief as best as I can. So this was an incident that was a use of force. The subject sustained an elbow injury after the involved officer used an exceptional technique takedown. It's exceptional because it wasn't in the SPD policy. It's a technique that the officer was taught at a couple previous agencies that they worked, and so this officer transferred into Spokane. They're called a lateral officer. And then the final determination on this incident was it was out of policy. The incident happened in March 2024. It was reviewed by the Use of Force Review Board, which is when our office learned about it, and that was in November of 2024. So as a brief summary of what happened, the officer involved was driving down in their police car on 6th Avenue and Oak around 3:30 p.m. In March, and they observed the subject walking in the roadway, and they stopped their car to speak with them. And this is from the officer's report, because when the body camera starts, the officer's already speaking with the subject. And they're already in the roadway. They told them, take off your bag. They had like a handbag, like duffel bag type thing. And then the officer directed them to stand by their vehicle. The subject pretty much for the whole interaction, is safe to say, objected to being detained. They kept saying this was illegal, there was no reason to stop them, so that was kind of their demeanor throughout the incident. At this point, the officer had not advised the subject that they were being detained or that they were under arrest. The officer grabbed the subject's left wrist, and the two struggled in kind of a tug of war back and forth, where the officer tried to restrain the subject, trying to get them into handcuffs, and then the subject, still kind of like what I said, arguing and saying that this is illegal, and they're like wriggling their wrists to get away from the officer. All of this is about 30 seconds long. So then about at that mark, 30 seconds, the officer began pulling the subject towards the front of their car, which was parked in the middle of the road. The officer pushed the subject's upper body onto the top of the car, and while the officer was still trying to get them into handcuffs, for about 15 seconds on the body camera, all you can see is the rustling of clothes, because the officer is, they wear their camera on their chest, and then the subject was faced away from them. And so all you can see is the clothes, the subject was turned away from them, and so we couldn't see the subject's hands during this part of the video. That's important because the officer in their report says that the subject motioned towards their waistband, which is a common area for suspects to keep weapons concealed. So that was part of the officer's assessment of the reason for force. So then they continued to argue back and forth. The subject maintained the officer's actions were illegal, and the officer said that the subject was being detained because they were in the roadway. So now we're about 1 minute and 19 seconds into the body-worn camera when you can hear the subject screaming for several seconds, and then the next thing that you can see is they are face down on the ground with the officer hovering over them. We only know what happened between the clothes rustling and the subject on the ground because there was a neighbor who could see this whole incident through their front window, and they started paying attention once they heard the arguing back and forth, and so they started recording this incident on their cell phone, and they were able to capture the moment that force was used. And Christina, do you have some slides for us?
Yes.
So this is the video that the neighbor captured. So as you can see, the officer picks up the subject by their waistband. They're still kind of negotiating, I guess, in this part. So he picks them up by their waistband, lifts them off the ground, and then slams them onto the ground. And then after this, the officer was able to handcuff the subject without any further incident. So then so there are other things that happen on scene, but for brevity, I will move on to the Use of Force Review Board discussion on this case. When this case came up in the Use of Force Review Board, initially no member of the board took issue with the force. The first member who spoke up was a defensive tactics trainer, as well as the subject matter expert consulted in the use of force of this case. They expressed their disagreement and distaste for the administration's decision on this case, and they said it was a results-based decision when the officer conducted a perfect execution of a tactic. This member also said that if there's legal justification to use force, they will. Further discussion at the board on de-escalation. Members said that it could have been done better, the use of force, in an optimal situation, but it's the subject who decides when force is used and not the police. and that takedowns aren't pretty, and if we are concerned about what looks pretty, then we need to remove takedowns, and that there were no other force tools available. So the OPO took issue with this and how this was recorded in reports versus what we saw in video. When you look at the reports, the way that this was described was with words like guided to the ground. The OPO maintains that that didn't look like that. It looked more like a wrestling body slam. The neighborhood where this occurred was described to be a hot spot near an urban area with lots of cars and foot traffic. It was in a residential neighborhood with few people and cars at the time of the incident. The OPO also raised concerns on a lack of analysis during the review of the case on exceptional techniques, which the policy at the time required extensive detailing because it's not in the policy. Discussion on the governmental interest on a traffic infraction, and alternative means that the officer could have considered given the lack of urgency in the matter. And some of the responses from the board were telling officers not to enforce laws can be a slippery slope, so you don't want to go down that road. And another member said that the subject matter expert did a better job than the officer in justifying the force than the officer did. A concern raised by a board member, which the OPO also shares, was to ask what kind of training occurred when the subject matter expert already made it clear that they were in agreement with the officer, but was then later directed to provide corrective training. That expert said that they provided the training as recommended by the department and didn't elaborate any further. So that was the discussion on the review board. Getting to the topics that we address in the report, I think our main goal in this report was to update the use of force review board process. The first thing that we thought should be addressed is culture. Going through this case, there's a general reluctance that we noticed to say that something is outside of policy. Every member in the chain of command found the officer's actions within policy up through the rank of assistant chief. 2 separate subject matters were consulted, which is unusual. And then 1 supervisor felt the need to distinguish their analysis from the rest of the chain of command, but ended up with findings that shift the failure in training completely onto the defensive tactics cadre. So that is the culture section. Regarding supervisor responsibility, this is something that we've heard in training over the years, but I think this is a really good time to bring this issue up again. So in Portland and Seattle, we looked at their review board policies, and their supervisors are held accountable for reports and analysis of the officers that they supervise. Here in Spokane, supervisors can make any determination they see fit, and the department doesn't really have a formal mechanism to provide them feedback. So they kind of make their determination, and then they don't know if that's in line with department expectations or not, and then they have to do it again, and they never really get guidance on the matter. So I think it's important to be able to give supervisors some sort of feedback so they know if their analysis is in line with how the chief wants to administer certain policies. Currently, what SPD is doing, according to the Director of Strategic Initiatives, is that there is an email once a case is closed that goes out to the chain of command, so supervisors, that hopefully get passed on to officers for them to read. And that just, I think, is an ineffective and passive method of communication. This doesn't prioritize direct communication with supervisors, teaching them, mentoring them. So that goes to our first recommendation, where SPD should implement standards on supervisor responsibility, but also provide continuous training on proper evaluations of policies, and mandate formal follow-up when a senior officer disagrees with a subordinate's analysis. Regarding the purpose of a review board, as Bart mentioned, Commissioner McCollum and I were at the Use of Force Summit in December, and one of the classes that was of great interest to me was the class on use of force review boards. And according to Eric Daigle, who was teaching that class, he said that review boards should have two purposes: be an accountability tool to ensure supervisors are fully and fairly conducting force reviews and investigations, and provide an ability to continually evaluate the policies, training, tactics, and equipment of the department. If you look at SPD's policy, it's 302, it kind of just lists the function of the board, but not really the purpose of it. And so our recommendation 25.2 is that SPD should update the purpose so that the review boards are an oversight mechanism to address those two purposes that I discussed. So then, getting to use of force review versus an investigation, I know that this could be getting in the weeds for a lot of people, so I just wanted to bring the issue back to the surface that SPD conducts reviews, not investigations on uses of force. So if you file a complaint with our office or internal affairs, that gets an investigation if meets the criteria and the policy. But with use of force, it just gets a review, which is much less of an investigative process. And so part of that, in this case, had there been a full investigation, questions of fact would have been answered. There was a very senior reviewer who still didn't know if the officer had advised the person that they were under arrest. We don't really know that because that wasn't on the body camera, at least at the beginning of their interaction. There would be an attempt to resolve disputed facts, and then individuals who are involved could be interviewed to ask them for their perspective rather than deducing what they thought. And so we think that the best place to address these types of things is in internal affairs. They already do investigations, and currently their role is to collect information on uses of force and send it up the chain of command. But policy only requires an investigation when there is an indication of a policy violation during the review. So our recommendation 25.3 goes to IA should play a more significant role in evaluating all reviewable uses of force. Next is review board membership and training. So at the review boards, when we talk about these cases, there's a brief synopsis that's prepared and read to the board on each case, and then the case is kind of offered up, and then if you have something to say, you can chime in. If no one volunteers to speak on the matter, then the case or the board moves on to the next case. And so in this area, we thought that the board should implement changes to increase its effectiveness by formalizing its procedures. Members should also receive annual training to properly fulfill their role on the board, as the board doesn't currently receive any training. An example that we saw was that Seattle PD requires 8 hours of training for each board member every year on legal updates on force, use of force investigations, and curriculum on use of force and de-escalation. And so we thought that was a A good example, I know that in the report we identified other areas as well, including familiarity with CJTC's principles. And then a couple other things to change the board structure. We thought that it'd be really good if supervisors came and presented each case that they were responsible for reviewing to the Use of Force Review Board. This would provide accountability for both the board and the supervisors at the same time. And supervisors would have firsthand learning process on how the board deliberates. And then lastly, we found 2 examples. This is happening in Olympia and in Portland, where there is a community member who is a member of the Use of Force Review Board. Currently, the Use of Force Review Board is made up of all SPD employees, and I attend as well. So that would bring someone who doesn't work for the city into the process. So 25.4 of our recommendation kind of ties all of those together. I won't regurgitate all that. And then 25.5 kind of details the areas that the board should receive training in. So then the next one is timeliness of reviews, and this is use of force reviews conducted by the chain of command. Feedback that we've heard as a board is that the reviews take way too long. And in this case, it was 131 days from when the incident occurred to when training was completed, and then 173 days before the Use of Force Review Board reviewed the case. And so that's a long time to have to recall feedback from an incident. And so training, if any, won't be as effective when it's that far out. Any tactics that may be problematic could be inadvertently reinforced in the time where it wasn't addressed. And their policy right now, SPD, there isn't any limit on how long a use of force review takes. So in internal affairs, they have a maximum of 180 days, which this still falls within, but establishing some upper guideline, I think, would be helpful in a use of force review. So our recommendation 25.6 places a maximum number of days to conduct a review in an as expedited a fashion as practicable. Moving on to training on conducting use of force. In the past, we've recommended that any potential misconduct be sent to IA for investigation. The problem is when supervisors aren't identifying issues to send to IA. In this case, supervisors were giving opinions like the downward trajectory was helpful because the subject could help break their fall with their arms. Or the mechanics of the takedown didn't cause the injury, the road did. And a subject matter insisted that the officer executed a tactic perfectly in line with CJTC guidelines, which was later confirmed not to be the case. So there was an absence of analysis on the necessity of force and alternatives of force. And so our recommendation 25.7 goes to extensive and repetitive training with all supervisors who are responsible for supervisory reviews. And then 25.8, for consistency, SPD should only allow tactics listed under the Defensive Tactics Manual. There is a supervisor in this chain of command who said that martial arts is not new and exposure to law enforcement should be encouraged. But then that same supervisor said that the DT program should also be the ones to keep out training that officers learned elsewhere. And so for consistency, let's just keep it to what the policy says. And so that's what the manual, that's what 25.8 is about. And then there are only 2 more sections, so we're almost there. The second to the last section is de-escalation. So it took 6 seconds from when the officer contacted the subject to when they took hold of the subject's wrist. And it took 1 minute and 20 seconds from initial contact to when the officer slammed the subject on the ground. And the officer only gave the subject commands. The de-escalation policy calls for employing tactics that reduce the likelihood of force, and it appears that the officers here interpreted de-escalation to mean any verbal warning given to the subject, which the OPO maintains deviates from the de-escalation policy. And so our recommendation 25.9 is that supervisors should define and analyze de-escalation attempts that they're seeing in their reviews. And lastly, the use of the training failure disposition. So one of the supervisors in the chain of command said that the use of force was a training failure. The category of training, or the disposition of training failure, only exists in personnel complaints. So if you file a complaint with IA, whatever they decide the complaint's disposition is, training failure is one of them. In uses of force, the only dispositions are in policy or out of policy. So there's an incorrect usage there. But since they use that term, I think it's helpful to explore the definition. And there is a difference between a department's failure to train the officer and the officer not complying with policy due to not unlearning training from previous employment. And SPD's definition kind of conflates the two. And there are circumstances where there could be performance deficiencies that don't rise to the level of misconduct, and that's not really addressed in training failure. In a place like Portland, the supervisor, if they identify something that doesn't rise to the level of misconduct, they can identify training for the officer. And so our last recommendation is that SPD should ensure conclusions made in the use of force review process should be limited to within or outside policy, and then they should review and update their policy for consistent limitations in how they're defining dispositions. And then if you have questions, I'll take those, but I know Bart also wanted to talk about steps that SPD has taken since this case has come to our attention. Maybe you want to talk about that first, Bart?
Can I just ask if you could share with us, what were the injuries of the subject with that fall?
So they injured their elbow, and then I know that they had to go to the hospital. But I'm not sure exactly because their medical file is not included as part of this review.
Yeah, there are some indications that surgery was required. But one other thing that we didn't really talk about is there was a discrepancy between what the actual charge was for why that individual was being stopped. And there's a difference between pedestrian interference, which is a misdemeanor crime in Spokane, and being a pedestrian in the roadway, which is just a traffic infraction. A lot of the justification for this use of force was, well, it was a crime, we have to respond to crimes, don't tell us not to do crimes, but it was an infraction. And it became a crime when all of a sudden the officer interacted with that person and then they didn't immediately comply, which then we have this obstruction thing, which is also a slippery slope. But knowing your authorities at the time, I think is very, very important. But I just want to say, we briefed 3 cases last month at our OPOC meeting. And then right before that meeting occurred, we had attended this review board, Louie May did, and she had brought this to my attention. Once she brought that to our attention, I just want you to know that there are some things that are really good that in my opinion, that are happening right now in the police department. It might not be perfect, but it wasn't happening in previous years. So once we brought this to the attention, and I immediately picked up the phone and I started talking to them directly in regards to how I felt that review board went. So I was invited to the police academy, and I had a meeting with the director of strategic initiatives, the training director, and the lead defensive tactics instructor. This case was also then taken by the police chief, and he had a meeting with the entire executive staff of SPD where they did a full walkthrough and determination on why it was in fact found to be out of policy. There's been a reinforcement of the Reasonable Care Act and options to walk away from something. We don't have to actually always have the final word. There's been an adjustment made to who is on the review board. So some members are no longer there and additional members have been put on there. Formal mentorship was given to a previous review board member. Formal mentorship was given to a patrol team when comments were made about a use of force that we became aware of, this particular one. There was a formal disavowalment of comments made by review board members, by members of SPD, both the lead defensive tactics instructor and the director of strategic initiatives, saying that they were incorrect, that Washington State was not teaching this tactic. I did go and I met with Richard Peterson of the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. He's the use of force program manager, to ensure that I had first-person knowledge of those tactics, not just what was being told to me. The chief of police, Chief Hall, has agreed to meet with Richard Peterson next week, along with our office and the defensive tactics staff. That's coming up on Monday. The chief of police met with me one-on-one to discuss potential strategies for the use of force review and the use of force review boards. We even had a conversation about restructuring internal affairs so that they had a much more robust look at use of force cases. There's been a revamp of pre-field training officer training for both new hires and laterals, with a greater emphasis on separation of concepts between uses of force and de-escalation. They're two separate distinct topics. We're looking further into the training standards for laterals with emphasis on Spokane policy. We're reevaluating the de-escalation policy in SPD right now. The chief is looking at updating the use of force policy and has actually asked us to send him our previous recommendations, which we made years ago, that he's reviewing, and he's liking some of that. The chief provided pointed feedback to supervisors in training, emphasizing accountability and risk mitigation. There is a lot of things that has happened inside of a 3 or 4 week period. So we write these reports, but the pressure is continuous. If we're after change, we can't make them do change, but we can recommend it and we can persuade and we can be consistent and persistent, zealous advocates for it. And the last thing I'd like to say is that this next section, we actually have the lead defensive tactics instructor who decided he wanted to come here tonight because he met with me personally to talk about clarifying concepts and collaborating on how we might want to go forward. So he's looking at changing the emphasis for all defensive tactics instructors in SPD. He's emphasizing increased hours for defensive tactics and review for all. He's also sent out a memo to all supervisors with recommendations on how to properly review force. He's looking at de-escalation, the legal purposes for the actions that officers take. And he's come here tonight to show that we are not worlds apart in our ideas. And he's willing to take pointed questions. He doesn't have a PowerPoint presentation, but he's here to give a little bit of a brief thing, but to take your questions, because we've talked about some uses of force that are kind of eyebrow raising. But I'd like you to hear it from him on what he thinks, because it shouldn't just be us saying it. I think we should hear from the police department.
So let's give him a name.
This is Lieutenant Jake Jensen. Sorry about that.
Lieutenant Jensen, welcome.
Good evening. How's my volume? Usually
It's good.
I talk pretty loud.
It's good.
So I'm glad I could come tonight. I've actually never been to one of these. It's been very revealing to me and educational. The OII thing was very interesting as well. So Ombuds Logue and I have spent a lot of time recently together. I think that's important, right? We need to take in all kind of the the opinions, whether you want to hear them or not, to kind of move forward. And that's what I want to focus on, hopefully tonight, is moving forward. And some of the changes that you've kind of addressed there are taking place, which shows firsthand there is an influence that the Ombuds office does have. And to be completely honest, I am proud of my agency, so I will do whatever I can with the training kind of approach to make sure that we are giving an acceptable product and that we make improvements where we can. I work closely with CJTC, and Program Manager Rich Peterson and I are on the same page when it comes to kind of delivering defensive tactics and use of force training. So we are not worlds apart either, and I think we can be successful in moving forward and delivering the right message. And we're going to make mistakes, but I think it's important that we learn from them and kind of move on and be as successful as we can given the circumstances of some of the stuff we have to deal with, right?
Right.
Questions?
So do we have questions?
I just have a comment, if I may, or you want to?
Well, I was going to ask Lieutenant Jensen to clarify. Sometimes we get into acronyms. We know how that works in the education world. CJTC, right?
Yes, the Criminal Justice Training Commission.
Thank you. Okay,
Yes.
want to make that clear. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just going to say, you know, being on this commission for 9 years, I've seen and felt a lot of different emotions of what goes on and what doesn't go on. And, you know, we went through this report, this closing report, and, you know, part of me wants to start diving in here and saying, okay, well, you know, why are we taking so long? And you know, why are these things happening? Why is the ground being blamed for the injury, the takedown? But that becomes less important because of what I'm hearing has resulted from this this talking back and forth. That yes, we're closer than we realize. We're not two independent worlds, but I'm starting to hear things that I never thought I would hear or have not heard in a long time. So I'm optimistic, and I you know, actions speak louder than words, and so I'm looking forward to future reports that will show what we're striving for, and I appreciate you coming here in person to create some assurance that that indeed you mean what you say, and I thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarification question? So are we sharing about this report, or is he sharing about the defensive tactics right now? Is this where we're sharing our opinions about the report? Or are you sharing as a presentation, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I would think if you have any questions about defensive tactics or what is being taught or what is going to change, I think it's pretty wide open. We can go back and actually talk about this closing report because we still have to approve the recommendations. So I would think at this time, I think, and I have a couple of questions about what goes on in the training, but I think it's more that type of questioning right now, and then we can get back to Mr. Logan, Ms. Amana about the actual report.
Okay, yeah, I prepared this. I wrote something that I was ready to read, but I just wanted to make sure I was doing it at the right pace,
Okay.
which isn't now.
Okay, which isn't now. Okay,
Exactly.
we will, yeah, we'll take that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Later. So, Commissioner Wetzel, do you have any questions for Lieutenant Jensen?
Well, I guess,
You got to speak into your mic, sir.
thank you. What's changed?
So some of the things that he mentioned are the things changing, and this has been, I wasn't a part of the U.S. Force Review Board where these discussions took place when it was evaluated, but it wasn't that long ago. A month ago? November, okay. So since then, I think a lot of changes have occurred, and that's a pretty short span of time. I know I've spent a considerable amount of time on developing plans moving forward, and meeting with the chief next week with Program Manager Rich Peterson and some of my staff will hopefully get us on the same page moving forward so that we can start applying some of these recommendations potentially. For me, what I want is more training time because that's going to increase performance on the street. That's a fact that occurs, right? So if I can train or I'll be allowed to train officers more, especially in defensive tactics, use of force, and yes, properly, then hopefully the performance will increase and we have less issues occurring to where we're sitting here tonight going over, an incident that occurred that isn't going to bring, pleasure to a lot of people.
Has there been, excuse me, any specific discussion on this specific incident and how specifically this type of encounter can be made better?
Yes, so he had mentioned about a training that took place with the executive staff, and that was kind of prompted by me where I put together kind of a PowerPoint covering kind of the reasonableness standard of use of force when reviewing an incident and what it all entails. And in short, if you look up RCW 10-120-020, it talks about permissible uses of force, like when law enforcement can use force, like their legal authority established. Then it goes into the reasonable care requirements, which are super important and have been for many years in our training since they came out. First, when possible, use all de-escalation tactics. Second, use the least amount of force necessary under the circumstances. And third, terminate your force when the necessity for that force ends. So those three components are huge in really all the defensive tactics and use of force training we have done. We just have to reiterate maybe some nuances that people aren't understanding, specifically under the necessity that Ombuds Omana brought up of what is the definition of necessary, and did any reasonable alternative exist, and was the force used proportional and reasonable under the circumstances? And I think you can watch that, you can read all the reports, you may have differing opinions, but ultimately the assistant chief found this out of policy. So that's the finding. So now we need to move forward on how we correct that and send that expectation to our officers so that they're performing better under those expectations.
Has there been any discussion about change in this specific technique under circumstances like this? I mean, it seems to me that this kind of encounter can't be that unusual.
I think use of force in general to arrive to the level where it's being reviewed is a pretty rare instance. Now this takedown, I want to be clear, it's not like an approved technique at the Spokane Police Department, okay? That's what made it kind of maybe confusing, controversial, nuanced with maybe the review process. It's not a CJTC technique currently. There's a variation of it that was in place maybe a few years back, but it did not involve lifting the person clear off the ground to generate the momentum to carry them to the concrete. So these are the nuances we need to make sure our officers understand moving forward. Yes, I agree. I want a more robust DT manual that has techniques in it that officers can train and repeat over and over again so that in stress they can perform it to a successful kind of level. But realistically, we need a lot more training for that to occur. And we're kind of developing our DT manual again to kind of adopt some of CJTC's or the Criminal Justice Training Commission's techniques. And that's kind of a work in progress as well.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
I have a question that over the years I've come to some conclusion. So I'm glad you're here because I'd like to ask you this question. And this would just be your opinion. You probably don't have any facts based on this, or maybe you do. According to your experience, do you find that you have to do more direct training with lateral placed officers? I know we don't have very many homegrown officers. I mean, I know over the years we've had mostly lateral positions, but do you find a difference in the two? I hope my question makes sense.
Yeah, so to give you a perspective, if we get an entry-level officer they go to a basic law enforcement academy, which the curriculum is developed by the Criminal Justice Training Commission. And within that 19 weeks, they receive about 100 hours of defensive tactics and or use of force training, which is pretty robust. I mean, it's a lot of time in the mat room learning techniques and learning how to apply those contextually. When we get a lateral officer, currently it's about a day you spend with them, trying to get into their brain to see what techniques they used at their prior department, trying to understand their understanding of use of force. If they come from a different state, you're trying to educate them on Washington's reasonable care requirements, which is nuanced compared to other states. So do we have enough time with them? No. One of the things that occurred out of this was kind of me redrafting what we do with our lateral officers to make sure these specific conversations take place, like what techniques did you use, specifically takedowns, because that's kind of the area where you see takedowns generally occur when somebody's actively resisting us, pulling away or kind of trying to run away. And there's a lot of variation in what occurs there, but I think one of the principles that we stand by, and I know CJTC does, is that we have to control their descent when possible, right? If it's not like a life and death emergency, I'm responsible for this person and I have to control the manner in which they go to the ground. So the techniques that are taught at CJTC are ones that kind of take that into account automatically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Bart?
Not really a question, but just a comment.
Okay.
Because we've talked about supervisory reviews, and we've written a lot of reports over the years in regards to maybe we've come to some different conclusions. But this is one of the first times I've heard where they've actually taken a case and sat down, and your executive staff is all lieutenants and above, is that correct?
Yes, and then obviously some outside folks that attend as well, but yes.
Okay, so we've found even recently that if the sergeant, the lieutenant, and the captain say it's all in policy, but then the assistant chief or the chief says it's out of policy, there's not even really a good feedback loop to go back and help that captain, that lieutenant, and that sergeant understand why their interpretation was incorrect or different from the chief's. So this is one of the first times where there's actually been mentorship going back down to the lower level supervisors in the chain of command. And I think that is just really, really important.
Okay.
And they're also doing monthly supervisor trainings. And in the last several that I've gone to, they've also been taking recent cases and going through and talking about how to review it. But Lieutenant Jensen actually sent out criteria. Instead of asking a subject matter expert to come in and talk to you about the technique, the supervisor should be able to interpret that policy themselves and come to a conclusion on whether that use of force was appropriate or not. So that's something new that also just went out recently as well. So as we're trying to refine the supervisory reviews, as the sergeants and lieutenants get smarter, they'll also be able to pass that down to the officers that they're actually having direct supervision of. So hopefully we can push this down fast and department-wide, and that just hasn't occurred that I'm aware of in recent memory.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Jensen, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Or I forgot to mention that one of our commissioners, Luke Jasmine, has been online with us and is watching this. So thank you, Luke, for being here. I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Did you hear him? Okay.
So I do have a comment.
Okay.
So,
So back to the monthly,
yeah,
back to the closing report.
It's on the closing report, definitely. I wrote it out because I had a lot of thoughts. So I have several questions about this report. And the first is government interest. Who exactly was this officer protecting and serving by detaining this person walking in the street? It was a residential street with little traffic, and designating a place a hotspot doesn't mean that the police can or should profile and detain people in that area just because an officer sees someone they think looks shady and who they think might have a warrant. In this situation, I think most of the officers that I've met so far would have merely issued a verbal warning for pedestrian in the roadway infraction at that location. And so why did this infraction end with a broken elbow? Who was the officer trying to protect and serve? The first gram factor is the severity of the crime, and pedestrian in the roadway is a relatively minor traffic infraction. The second gram factor requires officers to consider the ability, opportunity, and intent of a suspect to threaten the safety of officers or others. This subject was a small person temporarily walking in the street to avoid smoking near children with no obvious intention of threatening anyone. The threat claimed by the officer in their report only occurred because that officer decided to physically detain the subject rather than give them a simple warning. It was also concerning to see the chain of command review offered mostly legal justifications, with some in the chain essentially rewriting the incident in the officer's favor. The officer's report clearly states he fell on the subject, but up the chain, a report describes the officer as guiding them to the ground, which is not what happens when one watches the citizens video that we just all watched. It also concerns me deeply that only one person, Officer I, the final link in the chain, was the only real backstop on this case of improper, or what many people might view as excessive force. All of this while body-worn camera from a reasonable officer on the scene shows them watching the citizens' video and reacting to the takedown move with an immediate audible gasp and a statement that it wasn't very nice. During the ensuing use of force review board meeting, leaders within SPD went on to offer more legal justifications as well as sharing problematic ideas about de-escalation. Thank goodness our Deputy Ombuds, Luva May, was there and had the strength to question the use of force and the review process. The chief said no one in a chain of command wants to be the bad guy. But what are the residents of Spokane supposed to take from that? Are we supposed to think SPD leaders who justify improper uses of force for their colleagues are actually the good guys? This case also highlights the importance of citizens recording police interactions from a reasonable distance when possible. It was video from a citizen witness that showed the true severity of this particular takedown. If there had only been body-worn camera evidence, we wouldn't have had the full story, and this situation likely would have gotten a pass. After all, it was only after going back and watching the citizen video that the second from the top of chain of command was willing to say that this was out of policy. I wish I didn't have to make this recommendation, but with chain of command reviews that serve to excuse bad behavior and members of a use of force review board who believe uses of force are in fact de-escalation, the current culture within the Spokane Police Department requires Spokane residents to diligently bear witness to police interactions and record them just in case. Perhaps the most disturbing thing for me about watching this interaction was the sentence that kept repeating in my mind. That could have been me. That could have been me. I don't actually smoke, but if I did and I walked out into a residential street to avoid smoking near children and a police officer rolled up asking my name and stopping me for seemingly nothing, I might react somewhat indignantly and assert my rights as this individual did. Now I have to wonder what would happen. I know Chief Hall is working diligently in his new position and also super openly with our ombuds, which does give me hope that a cultural shift might be in our future. but based on conversations I've had, we're just not there yet. So while these are being made, I would really hope people are paying attention, because we still have uses of force that are unreasonable. So I appreciate the work that's being done, but right now it's talk, and I'm very excited to see what the talk is going to lead to. I hope it leads to really good action.
Okay. So thank you for your comments. I'm just going to remind people that these are your comments and your opinion, correct? So Amy is speaking for herself, Commissioner McCollum is speaking for herself. Not that none of us would agree or, disagree with anything. I just want to make sure that at our commissioner meetings, that when we speak out, unless we have a formal statement that we've all agreed to, that we say that. So that was a statement that you drafted and presented. Okay.
Quite honestly, there was a lot to this report, and I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to really highlight the things that stood out to me.
Okay.
And I don't always write it, but this one I had all the reports, I had all the camera evidence, and I just felt like it was really, I wanted to make sure I hit all the points I hit. So it was definitely my opinion. I'm not representing anyone else up here's opinion.
Well, let me just state my opinion briefly.
Sure.
Because I've looked at
Can
that
you
video.
get there?
I've looked at that video and read all the reports, and I don't see one thing incorrect that Ms. McCollum has stated.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the closing report itself is professionally written with facts, because, correct me if I'm wrong, you cannot put any opinions in your reports. And to remind people that your report is shared with the Police Guild, members of the Executive Board of the Police Guild, and, a very good conversation. I was there. Happened. So there's always conversation going on. So appreciate you guys. Any more comments or questions? Shall we move on? Okay, moving on to, first of all, we need to do our recommendations. Oh, thank you.
Are you taking public testimony on this one?
Sure, go for it. You're going to introduce yourself, I know you
Yeah,
will.
Dave Duncan, President of the Spokane Police Guild. Don't forget anything you said tonight. I agree a lot with what you said. Great recommendations. We've heard a lot of positive things that are changing at the police department. What has changed so far? Nothing yet. But it feels like change is happening. So a few months from now, 6 months from now, ask Lieutenant Jensen to come back, ask the chief to come in, and ask them to actually explain to you what has changed. So I think you've got the right person, Lieutenant Jensen, at the academy to do this. And I'm sure that he would love to have made, these positive changes years ago. It feels like now we have a chief that is giving him the time and resources to do that. So lots of great things seem to be in the works. We have to, give our training staff the time and the money to do that training and put these things in place. And that's where you folks come in with the accountability. Keep asking those questions and make sure that those changes are happening, because we need them. Yeah, great report. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I need a motion on the floor about the recommendations.
I'll go ahead and move that the commission accepts all 10 recommendations in the closing report F24-19.
Okay,
Second.
is there any further discussion on the recommendations? Commissioner Jasmine, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yep.
I didn't hear what he
Yeah.
said.
Well, great meeting from Chair Rose, who's been doing it. for a while. So I apologize for not being able to be in person with you all, but you know, it was great to be able to listen in, and that's all I got. Welcome to 2025.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So no discussions. All those in favor of recommending the recommendations, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Abstention? Okay, motion has passed. All right, moving on. We have our Brennan here. I'm sorry, Brennan, I keep just calling you by your first name. That's kind of rude. But Boone is going to help us out a little bit about the Open Public Meeting Act and kind of give us a little review on that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I just want to say at the outset, I am going to get through this as briefly as possible. I know it is pretty dry stuff. If anyone has any questions about any of this, feel free to just jump in and ask them just when they come up. It's easier to just address them then rather than to wait till the end. Open Public Meetings Act. It applies to meetings that happen with a quorum where action is taken. And there's a lot that goes into each of those three individual phrases. I'll have a separate outline with respect to quorum, but as for purposes of right here and right now, it's three members. Taking action. So action as defined in the OPMA statute is way broader than you think. It is participating in official business, so really just any matters pertaining to the business of this commission, not just votes. And that includes discussions, deliberations, considerations, or evaluations of anything related to commission business. So shorthand, I mean, those encompass basically everything this commission officially does in its official capacity. The meetings are, an important point to note about this is that no physical presence is required. They can be over email, they can be over text message, they can be a Zoom call, they can be a Teams call, they can be in person. Anytime any three commissioners are talking to one another contemporaneously, discussing, considering, deliberating, that is a meeting within the definition of the Open Public Meetings Act. It can be called, doesn't matter what it's called, it can be a workshop, it can be a study session, it can be a retreat, as long as there's discussion of official business, it's a meeting. And kind of the whole upshot of the OPMA is those meetings with a quorum have to be open to the public. So either in this space or another space, as long as they are noted properly, they can happen. If something emergent comes up, can always, the presiding officer, which here is Chair Rose, or a majority of the members can call for a special meeting. There's a lot of requirements that go into that, and so if that ever comes up, call me. But otherwise, they have to be open to the public. That comes up quite a bit with subcommittees. This commission is at a disadvantage because there's only 5 members. So subcommittees have to be limited to 2. 3 is a quorum. A lot of other city commissions don't have this problem. Spokane Human Rights Commission, I know this just from recent experience, currently has 9 members. So you can have subcommittees up to 4, 5 is a quorum. Currently has 9, we're authorized to have up to 11, in which case if those are all full, 7 is a quorum. The Arts Commission has like 15. So they can have up to 7 on a subcommittee, 8 would be a quorum.
Counselor, I'm wondering if, just to ease our ability to do, business, if we could amend our rules to make a quorum 4.
A quorum, do you mean redefine what a quorum means?
I mean, no, I guess
Are you talking
I'm
about
try-
additional members?
What I'm trying to figure out is that if we wanted to have a subcommittee of 3 and to avoid that being an official meeting, is there a way you would advise us to do that?
The only way you could do that would be for council to expand this commission.
Okay.
A quorum is set by Washington state statute and is defined as a majority of the governing board.
Okay.
So if the governing board were to be expanded,
Sure. I
yeah,
understand.
but otherwise, no.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks for asking. Meeting socially, not official business. So everyone can go to events together, galas, travel together, attend other city meetings, as long as official business is not discussed. You could talk about anything else under the sun, Gonzaga basketball, family, weather, anything, as long as it's not official, as long as it doesn't pertain to the commission's work. Let's see. I think I got through a lot of it here. Okay, so 2 members can talk amongst themselves. That will probably usually be Chair Rose and I imagine Vice Chair Smith, just for administrative purposes. But it can be anyone. And also importantly, members of city staff, Ombuds Logue, Deputy Ombuds Omana, Executive Assistant Cody, they are not included. So 2 members, any of them, and any 1, 2, or 3 of city staff, totally fine. It's just when you get to 3 members of the commission that you run into a problem. And kind of on that note, if you have information that you want to distribute to the rest of the commission, the way to do it is to send it to city staff. And then because the passive receipt of information, even if it pertains to company or commission business, is not a meeting. You can receive information, so when Ombuds Logue sends out the draft closing reports, not a meeting, that's totally fine to do. As far as best practices go, usually the best way to do it, this is not required, but the best way to go about it is for city staff to BCC the commission members, send it to themselves, send it to whoever, and then that way there's no accidental violations, because I have done this before. I accidentally hit that reply all button and it's right next, it's too easy to do. So to prevent that from happening, BCing the commission members is generally recommended. I think I've got through most of it here. Special meetings. If anyone has any questions about OPMA rules at all, call me or email me, whatever. That's the beauty of attorney-client privilege. I can't talk about it. It's will be kept. I have to keep it confidential, and then it can never be the subject of public disclosure. And remember, everyone, all public records, which is also pretty broadly defined, they are all accessible to the public if the public submits a PRA request. So if there are any OPMA violations, there are penalties for those, and if any of those come up via a public records request, bad things happen. So That is everything, I think, kind of briefly. If anyone has any additional questions, shoot me a call.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions right now?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. That was concise, and it was good. So thank you so much for that.
Anytime.
Okay, moving on. Annual Report Subcommittee. So Christina, help me with this. What do we?
So as we are now in 2025, we need to start compiling our annual report for the OPOC for 2024. When we say subcommittee, it's two. So we accept volunteers who were here during the 2024 year on the commission who would like to help. I'll have all the data, but if you want to write up the information or give me what you want to say and we can write it for it, like put it to words, completely up to you guys, but we'd just like to have your involvement as much as possible. So
I know last year it came out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So what are we looking for our timeline here?
Well, this year we'd like it to be a little quicker than last year, but I'd probably say February, March,
February, March.
as
Okay.
I confer with the boss over here. Yes, February or March. So probably meeting early February. The data's pretty straightforward, so it's just getting your input and getting what you guys would like to say.
Probably
and I'll-
March.
March. And I'll just say, when we first started these reports, man, we learned a lot. So now I think, thanks to the OPO office, these can be dealt with, I'm going to say, rather quickly. So is there any two people that would like to be?
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. If Dutch and I weren't here for the whole year, are you only asking people who were here for the whole year?
No, I think any commissioner, I mean, you were both here for a majority, at least over half of the year, and I think that you have a great grasp. Anybody who is on the commission right now can volunteer for this.
And can you do the work remotely, or is this
Yeah,
like-
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I'm cool to do it.
So we can do like a Zoom or whatever,
Yeah.
just to kind of get everybody on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay to do it if.
I'd certainly be willing to help. I guess it's not clear exactly to me what exactly the task is, but
Sure. So we can go over that.
Okay.
Well, I'll go over a previous annual report, and then we can kind of work together to put a new one out.
Okay, so Commissioner McCollum and Commissioner Wetzel, thank you so much for volunteering for that. And we are going to move right on to our Commissioner Speak Out. If anybody has anything they would like to say, I'm okay. So,
My only thing that I want to say relates to what Boone just talked about is at the NACOL conference, like every single other commission, Ombuds Commission had more people than us. And I really do think that having a larger number would be more useful for us. We might not be able to fill all of them, obviously, because as it is, sometimes these seats can be a little hard to fill, but I think having more bodies in these seats and more opinions is always a good thing. And the quorum thing is a little, like only two people can make it really challenging because people have different qualifications and stuff. So I would be very supportive of anyone who was interested in redoing an ordinance to include more people on the commission if it was something people agreed about.
yes, Mr. Lowe.
There's no requirement to redo an ordinance that already exists inside of our current SMC. It does take I think a vote of city council to approve it. You have to increase your commission size by at least two. One person appointed by the mayor and one person appointed by city council, but it's already in the SMC 04.32.
Yeah, I mean, it really it sounded like broke down to mayoral versus city council representation. Is that correct?
Yeah, it has to go 2 additional members, one from the mayor, one from the city council's office.
So we could do a city, like a at-large city council position?
That part I don't know.
Okay.
I can speak to that.
Oh, okay.
So as long as that is the current where the ordinance currently reads, there can always be changes to the ordinance. Those are the great thing about municipal government is that ordinances can be changed. That it's speedy, it's fast, it's efficient. For example, the Spokane Human Rights Commission recently increased its membership, members of the governing body, from 7 to 12. And so that expanded the quorum, or expanded the subcommittee and subcommittee availability significantly. It's not too difficult to do, just you can pass a resolution, submit it to city council, could be through your designated liaison, and they can put it on they'll take it to the committee and they'll put it on the agenda. If the commission would like help redlining the changes or any recommended changes to the policy, I have recently done so, and I'm capable of doing so. And I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, it was just a thought, I mean, that had come up way back in October at the conference, and then, subcommittee talk just made it kind of come back. So we should talk more about it. I don't want to take over everyone's opinion or anything, but it's something that I definitely think might help.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, because we have talked about it in the past, but we have not talked about it recently. So can we have that on our agenda for next month? Talking about doing a resolution and increasing, I think it's...
Well, and I would like Barton Louva-May's input, if possible, on that too, just to make sure we're not making their lives even more difficult, like, I want to make sure the work's being done before we go changing anything. So I do want to make sure we just have the timing right too.
Okay.
So I don't want to, it's just, that's something I have been thinking about on my mind, so.
Okay.
If you can help me get my budget ordinance approved,
I'll do
I might
whatever
be
you
more
want.
in
You know I'll talk to who you
favor
want.
of helping. Sorry.
Okay. Any other commissioners which wish to speak up? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, so I am officially closing the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.